Greetings and salutations, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. I am Charles, coming to you today with another episode of World and Economica. Last time round, we played Moon Economy games with Hagana. Kind of trying to figure out this new financial stock trading challenge thingy what's it, and so much exposition as to just how moon finances work, but we were finally moving forward a bit, so let's see where things go from there. Will we get through the first day of trading? Maybe farther? Let's find out. The two of us were banging foreheads and glaring at each other. Suddenly, Hagana's eyes shifted to the window. When I followed suit, my eyes met those of Chris outside the window. I missed that line. She had her fists clutched to her chest, and her eyes were glued to us like she was watching a sports match or something. When Chris's eyes met mine and Hagana's, she shrank back reflexively. Our eyes locked for a few whole seconds before she turned around and ran away as fast as she could. Her face was bright red, so it was obvious what kind of misunderstanding she was having. Oh shit. Get out of the way!
Shit! Get out of the way? What?
Shut up! Jumping up from the chair, I ran to the window, but I could already see Chris's back on top of the roof of the house across the street. When I had asked in the tunnel what Hagana liked, she seemed to like that kind of talk too. Hanging my head like I was fighting off a headache, I put my hands on the window frame.
Did you have to talk to Chris?
Hagana asked a simple question from behind. Well, I had to talk to her to clear up this misunderstanding, but that felt plenty stupid, so I got up. It's nothing.
Then what was that?
Because of the look in her eyes, it sounded suspiciously like she was making me look like a fool. But there was no doubt that I was a fool, so I just sat back down and spoke. She ran, so I felt like chasing.
I see.
Hagana tilted her head slightly, then nodded, as if acknowledging that such things did happen from time to time. Transition. In the end, I promised that I'd only use 3 million mools, whichever way I wanted. However, if my asset management was good, then I could move up to using half. Later, finding an opening and adding to my previous purchase, I ultimately bought an extra 3,000 shares at an average of 266 mools each. A bit under 800,000 mools. If this were the real world, it would have been a nerve-wracking number. But it was fake money, so it wasn't scary. Plus, just thinking that there was a 2.2 million mool reserve left felt reassuring. If I used margin, I could triple that capital, but I felt that it was too early to do so. Putting leverage on trade should only be done when it's the right time. So, until the end of trading at 5 o'clock, I bought and sold 2 other stocks. Both were stocks that had large intraday movements, which drew people like me who were looking to make a profit. They were entertainment companies with lots of risky things on their books. During the contest period, they'd announce various fake movies, and they'd roller coaster up and down. It was the same as real life, unlike companies that made things that was in every store, like toothpaste. No one really knew where things would fall. So, it was essentially gambling. It was all about how well you could read the market sentiment, stay absolutely calm, and not be greedy while gathering pennies. For example, if a stock was averaging about 100 mools between 97 and 103, you'd buy at 98 and sell at 101. You'd make more if you sold at 102 mools, but at 102, the guys who bought it at 103 might not be able to take the pressure and sell, so profiting was quicker at the lower price. You wouldn't buy at 97 mools because if the price actually dropped down that low, everyone would be afraid it might drop further, and suddenly the buyers would pull back and the price would fall through the floor. When that happened, what was once averaging around 100 mools could start averaging around 97. That kind of trading, going back and forth, took place in a matter of minutes, extending to perhaps 15 minutes at most. During that time, I'd switch screens constantly, using certain criteria to search for stocks that I hadn't looked at yet, gazing at the price movements, news, financials, or the economic situation. If I got time, I'd look at the mix of lies and truths among net chatter. That also had an effect on real trading. So in the smaller universe of the investment contest, I figured it must be more so. Finally, with 15 minutes left of trading, I checked all my orders. With the exception of that suspicious stock, I sold my other positions without registering any losses. I did that because in the stock market, demons lurked in the last 10 minutes. In those last 10 minutes, everyone would kill their orders, and it'd be hard sometimes to complete trades. There were tons of strange deals geared for that. I had once seen a certain company in a takeover battle that had been hitting the daily price gain limit repeatedly, and a 1.4 million buy order came in. For stocks that everyone was fighting to buy, the available sell orders would be divided amongst the buyers, according to lottery, after trading closed. Since a stock that hit the daily price increase limit had a high chance of going up, the people who believed the stock would rise the next day put in buy orders to participate in the lottery. Since the more orders you put in, the higher the chance you'd win the lottery, tons of orders were put in. Then, 5 minutes before the end of trading, a sudden order of exactly 1.4 million shares, valued at 200 million mools, came in instantly, throwing the stock into limit for a daily price drop. The trading lines were jammed in the 5 minutes before closing, so there were people who noticed the irregularity and even then couldn't cancel their orders. Upon placing an order, disclaimers for these types of situations would appear by default. Thousands of people were cast from heaven to hell in the final moments. Later, it was revealed that one of the investment funds that had invested in this company had sold every last share of their stock. Demons lurked in the last 10 minutes. At the time, just by pure chance, I was saved because I hadn't put my hand in. Since then, except for trades with special reasons, I always closed up 15 minutes beforehand. At 4:48, I closed all my positions except for that one suspicious stock. After that, I watched the remaining stock positions closely, checking to make sure the demons didn't come out. Even knowing that it was a futile thing, I set up an order to liquidate. All that was needed was to click a button to send it. 4:58. 4:59. 5 o'clock on the dot. The world of numbers came to a stop. Phew. Giving a sigh, I leaned back into the chair for the first time in hours. Slowly, the feeling of fresh blood flowing through my brain came. I ended the day up 120,000 mools. In the end, I had used 2 million mool, with 800,000 left poured into that sketchy stock. It was a fine result. Since I had access to the full 10 million mools, I probably could have brought in 1 million. From the start of trading, profits had been pouring in consistently at a violent pace. This could work. It might just work out. As I thought that and sat up in the chair, I noticed that Hagana wasn't next to me. Huh? I was sure that she had been next to me after lunch. When I had been trading in a daze, I had vague recollections of being asked some detailed questions. I had honestly tried to answer, but maybe she got annoyed at my lame replies and got up. That was a reasonable explanation, but I soon noticed as I stood up. Hagana was laying down on the sofa. What, you're sleeping? When I gave an exasperated mutter, Hagana's eyes popped open. Wah!
I wasn't sleeping.
What, you're going to say that you were thinking with your eyes closed? When I said that, Hagana furrowed her brows, closed her eyes slowly, and spoke.
I feel sick.
Huh? Oh. The screen made you dizzy? Hagana nodded. When I originally started, I got dizzy from the windows flipping constantly, and sometimes I went to the toilet to throw up before continuing trading. Until I got used to it, my eyes burned, and I saw trading screens even when my eyes closed. Furthermore, the dizziness and headaches were awful. I'd gotten used to it now, but it wasn't agreeing with Hagana right now. You okay?
You can't tell from looking?
Are you stupid? She seemed to want to add that, but apparently she was really feeling sick and didn't have the strength. You want a drink?
No, I said I'm sick.
Blunt. I felt that drinking something cold when you're feeling queasy can be refreshing, but I didn't say it. I shrugged and went to the coffee maker and filled a cup with the last dregs. There was only half a cup, but I loaded it with milk to fill it up. At this rate, you're a ways from getting what I mean when I say sentiment.
You made a profit?
With her eyes still closed, Hagana changed the subject. I did.
How much?
120,000 mools. Of course, it's with fake money. If it were real, well, I wouldn't be able to stop laughing. But if I had 10 million mools at my disposal, just making a 1% profit would be 100,000 mools. That's how the world worked. The rich got richer. But even if I made 1% every day, I wouldn't be able to catch up.
Really?
The guy on top is someone with that stupid name, Mr. Troche or something. Right now, with 23 days of trading, he has 49.52 million mools, up almost 5 times.
How is he doing that?
No clue, but I think he's the same type as me.
Type?
He makes a ton of trades over and over. However much a company can skyrocket, in 40 days at best it'd double, maybe triple. However, making 1% on a single trade isn't difficult. You do that 10 to 20 times every day. If you don't do it that way, you can't get to quintupling your money in 23 days.
Makes sense.
That, or from the start, he went full on.
Full? What's that?
I taught you about buying on margin, right? Full on is doing that full throttle from the beginning. Essentially, every trade, you always put everything you could behind it. If you did that, you'd always triple your returns.
And why isn't Hal doing that?
I knew she was going to ask that. If things don't go well, you're also 3 times as likely to lose your cool. Fair enough. Don't you get it? A loss of 10% on normal trade becomes a 30% loss. A 30% loss becomes a 90% loss. When that happens, it's impossible to stay calm. When you start losing, it's human nature to start shooting for an instant reversal. But
profits work the same way.
You'd think, right?
There's no way that the numbers wouldn't work out that way.
I'm not talking about that. I laughed and set the coffee cup down. I closed my eyes and recalled the time when I had gained 20,000 mools in an instant. And then, when I put everything behind a single stock, it got sucked into a horrific drop. If I had delayed the decision a few minutes, I wouldn't have gotten caught in that drop. While watching the price drop every second, I was half in tears, firing off orders to close my positions. In the end, after 12 minutes, my trades executed, and the 20,000 mools had dropped 14% to 17,000. Certainly, it was still 8 times the 2,000 mools I had started with, but that wasn't comforting, and I felt like I had a huge loss. That was the moment I learned that regardless of how much you started with, whenever your money dropped under the highest point it ever reached, it hurt badly. On top of that, the pain and frustration lingered with you. It was so bad I had written warnings to myself on paper and stuck it to the computer. Don't fall into despair. If you keep doing what you're doing, the money will keep growing. To trade with 3 times the money, you've got to have 3 times the guts.
In that case, yeah, Hal shouldn't be playing with that.
What? When I looked at Hagana in irritation, she still had her eyes closed, but the tiniest hint of a smile was on her face. A joke? When I stared at Hagana as though she were a dog that had suddenly started talking, she got up slowly. You feeling well enough to get up?
No, but I've got lectures.
Oh, right. Forgot you were a teacher. Hagana nodded, and then somehow managed to get up and walk unsteadily. Hey, that's dangerous. It's fine if you're a bit late, right? Hagana was stumbling around like someone in the dark, so I got up from my chair and grabbed her hand. Hagana didn't throw my hand off, but also didn't say thanks in response.
It's not fine. However, if you could teach calculus, then it'd be no problem.
Then there's a problem.
Thus, I have to go. Everyone has dreams.
Dreams? When I asked, Hagana just turned her eyes to me. Then she slid her hand out of mine and walked off. Watching her walk unsteadily to her room to get her things, I muttered, "Dreams." There was no other words that felt as out of place as that one when it came from Hagana's mouth. I just stood there for a while at the table, waiting for Hagana to come out of her room. After a while, her footsteps much steadier, Hagana came back holding her bag.
What?
I sat down in a chair and spoke. Have a safe trip. I imitated Lisa. Hagana's eyes widened in surprise and then looked away in distaste. But even so, she squinted at me and replied,
I'll be back.
Hagana quickly turned around and left the front entrance, with great strides. Looking at her retreating back, I felt like I got a sense of why Lisa liked to dote on Hagana. Oh, overnight transition, okay. The next day, when I went out to eat breakfast, Hagana came out, holding her terminal. It was annoying listening to Lisa's scolding, so I finished breakfast quickly before focusing on the screen. Hagana may or may not have thought my actions were a brilliant idea, but she was about to get scolded by Lisa too, so she put her terminal away. Now, instead of staring at her terminal, she was eating her bread with bigger bites than usual. But even so, Hagana wasn't stuffing her cheeks full like Chris, and in the end she finished in about the same time as usual. At that point, I started trading. And we're actually going to drop things there for this week. I think that's probably a good transition point. So we've gotten through day 1 of trading. Made a bit of a profit. But are we going to be able to beat the odds and become number 1? It really is on Hagana. If he's only able to play with 3 out of 10,000 wolves at the moment, there's no way he's going to be able to quintuple their money in that way within 40 days like that. But how long is it going to take for Hagana to join in the fun? Figure out some mathematical formula to get them ahead. I doubt it'll be day 2. That seems a little too preemptive, but we're going to have to wait until next week to find out just how day 2 of trading goes. As always, thank you for joining me. I hope you're having fun with this story. And I'll see you next time for another episode of World End Economica. Until then, go play some games, go experience some stories, go have some fun, go be creative.